This is WFYI News Now. It's November 7th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, what happened with operating referendums on the ballot for 3 Indiana school corporations? A local group's concern over President-elect Donald Trump's campaign promise of mass deportation. And Governor-elect Mike Braun starts talking about his transition to the role.
It's going to be my vision of being an entrepreneurial governor that's going to be conservative on the financial side, but very entrepreneurial on the problem-fixing side.
Those stories coming up. But first, Indianapolis voters had a long list of judges on their ballot Election Day. All 18 Marion County trial court judges handedly won a yes or no retention vote. Marion County voters decided to retain the justices, with not a single one getting less than 2/3 of the vote. The judges will now serve 6-year terms on their court before facing another retention election in 2030. There are also currently 2 vacancies on the court. The 3 finalists for each vacancy were announced recently, and Governor Holcomb has 60 days to appoint one of the finalists to fill each vacancy. All 3 Indiana Supreme Court judges on the ballot were approved for retention as well, along with the lone judge from the Indiana Court of Appeals, 4th District on the ballot. 3 Indiana school corporations asked voters to pass operating referendums this November. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Kirsten Adair reports Lake County voters passed their referendum, but voters in Howard, White, and Carroll counties rejected theirs.
Lake Station Community Schools asked voters to extend a 2017 referendum last November, but that referendum was defeated. This year, Lake Station asked again. Voters said yes. Tom Kribliver is the superintendent at Lake Station.
It's a win for our kids, and I'm just so proud of our community.
Lake Station cut transportation costs this year by making 3 days of the week remote learning days. Kribliver says with this referendum, Lake Station can resume busing students to school 5 days a week starting next week. This was the first time Kokomo School Corporation and Twin Lakes School Corporation asked for referendums. As of midnight, about 67% of voters in each district rejected the proposed tax increases. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Kirsten Adair.
One of President-elect Donald Trump's campaign promises was mass deportation of undocumented immigrants on day 1 of his presidency. A local group is taking the threat seriously. WVPE's Jeff Parrott has more.
One person who took note of Trump's promise was Juan Constantino, executive director of La Casa de Amistad, Michiana's leading Hispanic advocacy group. He said the nonprofit's leadership team already met Wednesday to begin planning, focusing on 3 things to start.
How do we prepare our community? How do we protect our community with legal defense? And then how do we convene allies to support us in this work?
Constantino says La Casa's first priority is to quickly hire an immigration attorney to work in its immigration clinic.
Are our families prepared for it? And it's unfortunately something we have to think about. If mom and or dad get deported, what right of attorneys are in place? What guardianship letters are in place? Does the whole family move with mixed status families?
Constantino said he's already seeing people express fear that reminds him of 2016 when Trump first took office.
We are already beginning to see that through the phone calls that are coming in, the families that are physically walking in and asking questions, the uptick in immigration legal consultations, and quite literally the last 24 hours. So the team is beginning to brace itself.
For WVPE News, I'm Jeff Parrott.
And for our final story today, Governor-elect Mike Braun says his big election victory gives him a platter of opportunity to tackle the kitchen table issues he ran on, including property tax and health care reform. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports Braun began talking about his transition Wednesday.
Braun says his double-digit victory in the governor's race gives him a mandate that can help further his agenda as he works with the state legislature.
And I'll accept it humbly and try to engage everyone in my own party, along with good ideas across the aisle.
Braun says an initial focus of his transition will be reviewing state agencies and their leadership.
It's going to be my vision of being an entrepreneurial governor that's going to be conservative on the financial side, but very entrepreneurial on the problem-fixing side.
Braun says he likes to move quickly and to expect agency leadership announcements to start soon. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
And that's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share. And follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.